Welcome to the Creative Academy, your go-to source for accountability, coaching, and community for writers. I'm Eileen, and today we're chatting about accountability and coaching with our very own Donna Barker. For those of you who don't know, Donna applied her writing skills and passion to a career as a technical ghostwriter, curriculum creator, and business coach to various entrepreneurs. In 2015, she had the courage to step out of the shadows and hit publish on a novel that had been ready to share for over a year. 3 weeks before her 50th birthday, she announced herself as an author of dark humor women's fiction. Donna still has a passion for nonfiction, creating curriculum and coaching, and she developed a resource called Write Women Write. She was the co-founder of the Creative Women's Summit with Crystal, and of course is a very vital part of our little community here on the Academy.
Wow.
So thank you.
Well, thank you. I love that we've just used up 3 minutes of our interview time. Sorry.
It's a thing where none of us actually like to talk about ourselves.
I hate talking about myself.
Yes, it's much easier for me to talk about my imaginary friends than it is for me to talk about myself.
So true.
So that's the little insecurity, which might be why so many writers are interested in having a coach.
I think that is true. I would not be where I am at any part of my career were it not for coaches and mentors all the way along the way from back 20 years ago when I started writing as my career. So.
And did you know that you needed a coach? Because I think that's one thing where people are maybe sometimes reluctant, or they feel like it sounds too woo-woo or whatever. Like, I shouldn't need a coach. I should just do this.
Well, I think did I know I needed one? No, I had a colleague who suggested, and she didn't use the word coach. She used the word mentor. And so it had a different sound to it back. It sounded like, oh, you're someone who's going somewhere, or I was someone who was going somewhere, and this person who's just a little bit further along than me can give me some tips to get to that place faster. If they had said coach, it would have felt a little less, it would have felt different, I think. So, I being a word person, being word people, I think we do put a lot of meaning into words. And for me, did I know I needed it? I knew I needed somebody. Did I know it was a coach? No, but ultimately I came around to recognizing that coaches were invaluable to everything that I do.
I really like that line about wanting basically that someone who's maybe just a little bit further ahead of you offering some advice, because I know for myself, I've been in a position to be able to sort of coach and mentor other people, and people are always, thank you so much. And all I can think about is the hundreds of people who gave me a hand up and sort of pulled me along and continue to do so. So, I think that's one thing, is no matter where you are on the journey, there's usually somebody who knows more than you do, who hopefully can help.
Yeah. And it's, and in terms of, the kinds of coaching that there are for writers, I really like to distinguish between what I do and then what you do, Eileen, and then what Crystal does. Because, and this comes around to recognizing that we're all on this continuum, and sometimes the continuum isn't a straight line. It's not even circular. It's almost like a blender. Like, we're in this continuum all at once. And so for the kind of coaching that I do and have done, even before I was working with writers, I've worked with entrepreneurs for years, coaching them with figuring out their business plans and being able to go to a credit union and get a loan and articulate their vision. And a lot of that is around shutting down the inner voice, because we all face this I hear it over and over again. You successfully, how many books have you published, Eileen? 15,
I think.
And how many times do you have to sit down and talk to your inner critic?
Pretty much daily. Yeah. Like every 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I think that is the one consistent thing that I talk about with other writers is, people always ask me, like, is it easier now that you've written these books and you've been published? And the truth is, it's not at all easier, other than I know that I have this insecurity every single time.
Right. And that you can push past it, you can push through it, and that, yeah. So,
and I may need to rely on someone else to help me with that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of walk through like what someone might expect or what kind of outcomes they might have if they work with a writing coach? Like, what could they use a coach to help them with?
Well, so I mentioned from my perspective, you've got a choice of different kinds of coaches depending on what your needs are. So you could work with a coach to at the end of a process of having written your book to help you do the technical pieces of getting your book into the world, you know, either with a traditional publisher or a self-publisher. Prior to that, you might want to work with a writing coach who's going to help you with the craft and, you know, do that editing piece. And then prior to that would be the mindset coach for the writer. So if you've been struggling with getting your first draft done, or if you've got that first draft done and you're struggling with what your next steps are and having the confidence to start sharing that with readers and so on, a coach can help you kind of normalize your experience, let you see everyone goes through this. This is not a negative thing. It's not a bad thing. And it doesn't mean you're not a writer. And it doesn't mean you're not a good writer. It just means that you're having an experience that's uncomfortable. Accountability is a really big piece that I work on with the writers that I work with. It's that we're writing in the sides of our lives for almost everybody is. We're not being paid to do it. And so how do you prioritize your writing? And that would be something, so helping you get unstuck. Offering a fresh perspective is really important. So we get all tied up in the emotions of our writing because it's really personal. So having that outside voice to kind of make you stand back and ask questions about, is that true? Like, that's a really, it's a big question, you know. Is it true that you just, you know, you've got 200 pages of crap that no one's going to want to read? Unlikely. So how do we work through you recognizing that, in fact, you've done something here that's valuable and that you want to keep working on, so you should keep working on it.
And that kind of takes us back when you're talking about all of this being a blender, is you may need to kind of cycle through. Like, I think, again, we all want it to be this linear process where, like, oh, now that I've gotten a book, I don't need to go back and get that sort of accountability. But, you know, I know for myself, having gone through some stuff in the past year, like, I struggled to get back on the writing train, like, which was unusual for me. Like, I'm used to writing to a deadline and getting my pages in, but you know, life can come along and derail you, whether that's something that happens in your life, or you have a new kid, or you move, or your job gets busier. So there are different things you need at different times, and you'll go back. So you know, you were done, you felt like you had craft down, but then you're trying a new book with a different kind of timeline, and oh, I need some help there. That's a useful part.
Yeah. And and I was also thinking, depending on what you're writing, kind of what you're saying there, like if you're writing something very personal, like memoir, for instance, is an area where a lot of writers that the writers that I've worked with and spoken to, they have different challenges related to their story because their story is theirs. So they'll hit these walls of, can I say that? Is that appropriate to share? And there's a whole processing part of the writing that goes on in those situations. And in some of those situations, you know, your writing coach is playing a role, but then you would also benefit sometimes from seeing a different kind of coach, like a life coach or a counselor, or you know, that community that gives you that emotional fortitude to continue writing this book that you feel compelled, or this story that you feel compelled to share.
So if someone goes to a coach and they've never been to one before, like, for lack of a better term, like, what does that look like? Like, is this person going to ask me a whole bunch of questions? Are we going to meet weekly? Or, you know, how does this work?
Well, I can speak to the coaches that I've had and the kind of coaching I do. And yes, I hope they ask you a lot of questions, because a coach, I don't believe that it's a coach's job to be solving your problems for you. I think the coach's job is to go in and help you see where you're stuck, which one would do by asking questions, and have you reflect on what's important to you, where you're headed with your writing and what you hope to get out of it, and what's blocking you. Like, how come you've got this disconnect between what you know you really want to accomplish and not getting to that place? So what it would look like, I believe, is that you would have a conversation with the coach, and there has to be a level of trust. Like, I'm not the right coach for all people, and I have had an experience with a coach who was absolutely the wrong coach for me. I didn't have the confidence to work with that particular coach at that particular time because I didn't know how to push back when she made assertions that didn't feel right. I believed her assertions. So you have to really feel comfortable and have a whole lot of trust. So I think if you've never had a coach before, the first thing to do is to have that 30-minute conversation with them, which I would hope in most cases the coach isn't going to charge you for, because the coach also wants to know that he or she is going to be a good fit for you and be able to help you accomplish your goals. And you can get a sense in 30 minutes as to whether or not there's a fit. And then you set a plan, like you decide on what is the goal of our coaching together, because this is not a lifetime commitment. It might turn into a lifetime commitment, but that's not the intention at the front end. It's, you have a goal as a writer, and can we set a target that we'll work towards together? So I will help you reach this particular goal. Right now, I'm working with a woman who wants to get her first draft done so that she knows that she has that first draft when she attends a conference on August 11th. And so that is the kind of coaching I'm doing with her. After August 11th, she may decide that she's got everything she needs. She got that first draft done, and I don't know what she'll do. Or she's got another conference coming up in November and she wants to be able to pitch it. She's already got pitch sessions. Maybe she'll stick with me for that next piece. Or maybe she'll go to Eileen and say, now I need a little bit of help with my craft. So I think it's really important to, when you're working with your coach, to be as clear as you can be on what your goal is, and also to feel whether or not that person feels like they are going to be able to help you.
I'm going to just like put a huge red circle and underline under that idea of coming to those kinds of sessions, having at least given some thought to what you're looking for from that coach. Because in many cases you're paying for that service. Like, you may just be doing a barter with someone else, but in a lot of cases you're paying for that sort of coaching and mentorship support. And the more clear you can be in terms of like, this is what I'm hoping to get, the more clear the coach can be back in terms of like, oh, I'm not going to do that thing for you. Or
Yes.
yeah, I definitely can do that. Or, oh, would it help then if I just sent an email once a week and just touch base with you? So you can kind of have that dialogue and discussion. And I used to work in healthcare, right? So for me, it's really similar to, I think too often we kind of come into those services like, oh, that's the doctor, so I can't ask anything of the doctor. I'm just here to receive whatever they give me. But the people who tend to be happiest and have the best outcomes when they're hospitalized or dealing with some kind of health condition are people who can say like, I'm expecting that I'll be able to walk again. Is that where we're going? Or is that not where we're going? Or, I want to move back home and live independently. And you're having those open discussions. And, again, for me, when I'm working with writers and they're able to say, I'm really struggling with this, then I know that's what we need to focus on. So I think your point about people thinking about that and being open means you're not going to get to the end of a 6 or 8 week or 12 week or 52-week coaching thing and be like, that didn't really help me.
Yeah. Well, and it also, I mean, there was one woman who I had a call with, a 30-minute call, and she had the goal. I asked, what are you hoping to achieve? And she wants to write a book. And so I asked her about the parameters of what success looked like to her. And she said to be on Oprah, which kind of makes me laugh because Oprah doesn't even have a show anymore, but that's still what we all hold as, like, the holy grail, I'll be on Oprah.
Now it's Ellen.
Ellen.
That's what I'm wanting now.
So that was her goal. And so talking that back a little bit, and the challenge that I can't help you get on Oprah. I can't help you write a book that will let you get on Oprah, because that's an external goal. So I bring it back to, okay, what's your goal? Leaving the world outside. Okay, you want to write the best book that you can possibly write. that is a goal I can help you work on. Now, timeline. And she said, well, I'd like to have it done in 30 days. Okay, let's figure out what done means. Okay, so what does done mean to you? Is that your first draft? No, I want to be pitching it to agents. Okay, I'm not the right person to help you. There might be somebody there who can help you. Oh, well, no, actually, I did ask one more question. I said, are you working on this full time? No, she has a full-time job and she has 2 children. So this is the evenings after the kids are in bed and for a couple hours on the weekend. So unfortunately, I can't in clear conscience say that I can help you achieve this goal. So that initial call is really good. And in the end, she went away and she wanted to pursue something with me. We did a 1-week accountability check-in. And at the end of that 1 week, so checking in 3 times during the week where she had set some specific goals. And it was clear that she's not ready to actually achieve these goals. And that's good information. That's good information to have. And some now context, she said, I'm going to go away and think about what it's actually going to take to write a book. Brilliant. So when she comes back or goes to another coach, she'll have that clarity and a better understanding. So I feel like that's a win.
I think that's a huge win. And I think, that's another really valuable point that, coaches are obviously, especially when we use the term coach, you think of someone who's like, go get them team, right? Like it's cheering you on, but a coach is also someone who's letting you know, like, what you're doing is not working, or it's possible that, your perspective on this is not as clean as it needs to be. And we get caught in our own, like delusions or, expectations. And, for someone to say to us, and, I've been on the other end where someone has said like, where I've been like, I'm going to have a draft done by X, and someone saying, is that really reasonable given A, B, and C going on?
Right.
And then it's that thing of like, oh, no.
It's really important. And it's not just my opinion. I wish I could, my fingertips say that this is the research that supports it, but it's really important that we set goals that we can achieve, because every time we set a goal that we fail at achieving, it gives that inner critic a little bit more power to say, see, you're not really a writer. You can't do this writing thing. And so I think that's a really important part of being a coach as well, is really listening to what the person is saying is their capacity, and giving them setting milestones along the way that they can achieve. Because the other side of that coin is that every time we hit one of those milestones, it creates that little success, like, I can do this, I am a writer. So I think that's a really important part of working with your coaches, making sure that they are really listening and hearing what you're able to commit to do, and not pushing you so far that you don't succeed.
And knowing that you can shift those goalposts. Like, I think, you can say like, you know what, you haven't been writing at all. Let's get where you're writing 200 words a day. And someone's like, oh, but if I only do 200, it's going to take me so long. It's like, well, there's nothing to say in 1 month we don't up that to 500 words a day or 1,000 words a day. But let's give you that feeling of winning.
Exactly. Yeah. And life, parents getting sick and so on. There's a really, I think the hardest part for me are working with people who come to sessions with excuses. And you can come with an excuse every now and then. My mom was sick. I'm caring for my elder mother. But when those excuses become the pattern, then it becomes really tricky. That then, as the person receiving the coaching, I think it's, at that point you have to sit down and figure out what are your priorities, and should you be, if you can't make this a priority right now, maybe it's time to, just write 50 words a day, even, so that you keep that writing as part of your habit, or start writing at least 50 words again. Because once you fall out of that pattern and you start using excuses, it's harder to get back into it. And I think, you've experienced that. I certainly have experienced that. It's, you don't want to go there. You don't. So you need a coach who's going to be firm but loving, respect that it's hard. Life is hard. But if this is something you really want to accomplish, you have to be making at least that much effort. Yes, let's readjust, but make that much effort.
Yeah, you got to stay on target. Now, how does somebody find a coach? I mean, obviously there's us.
That's right. I was looking
Here.
trying to think of, like, the magic orb, that ball,
Yeah.
the magic 8 ball. Actually, truly, the place where I would start, and the place I've found every single coach that I've worked with, but for the one that was a bad fit, was word of mouth and talking to other writers. So, in fact, Eileen, you were my development editor and a huge important coach at that stage when my first novel that was going to become published, when I wasn't sure that that was something that was actually a feasible or smart idea. So I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you and be in the Creative Academy with you were it not for you. So, and how did I meet you? I met you through a writers group. And I think they're the best places, because then you get a feel for, number one, other people who are in the group, and most writers groups will have people who are at all levels. And somebody doesn't have to be formally trained or hanging out their shingle saying, I'm a writer's coach. You can peer coach. You can do accountability, for instance, accountability coaching with other people who are at a similar stage, who just know how to listen and hear what you're saying, and then feed it back to you in a way that you'll go, oh yeah, okay, that's bogus. I shouldn't listen to that voice, or whatever. Now, when you get to the craft, oh dear, it's an accountability alarm. When you get to the craft, obviously it can get a little bit trickier to find those coaches, because that's an entirely different conversation, I believe, around who to look for, who's going to actually be reading and editing your pages.
Well, and I think, your point though is really valid around the idea. And I stress this to people all the time, which is sort of ironic given that these are services that I offer, for sale and for a fee, is I always tell people you don't necessarily have to be paying for coaching. And never get caught in the idea of like, I don't have the funds to pay for an editor, or I don't have the funds to pay for this coach, therefore I can't get to my goal. You just might have to be a little bit more creative about how to find one, or partnering up with someone. And again, the Academy, hopefully people are connecting on forums and talking, and you might meet up and connect with someone either here or another online group that can kind of offer you that support, because that's really valuable, I think.
Yeah.
In terms of paying for a coach, like, is there a range? Like, it was funny, I had a discussion with Crystal, and she says, what can people pay for a developmental editor? And I'm like, I've seen it as low as sort of 50 cents a page to $10,000 for a manuscript, and pretty much everything in between. So is coaching similar? Is it kind of looking around to see what you can afford and what's available?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's similar. There are coaches. I've actually not seen a writing coach who charges less than $75 an hour. But I was having a conversation with a woman yesterday, and we were talking about, she's a business coach, and so we're kind of peer mentors. And she was giving me heck and saying, I want to see you charging $1,000 a month. And I just was like, okay, now that's a coaching model, $1,000 a month. And then down at the other end, there would be the $75 an hour, or I haven't seen many people going lower than that. But I like to think of it differently. I've been working as a self-employed freelance writer since January 2002. So that makes it, at this point, 16 and a half years. And long ago, I moved away from the per hour kind of fee schedule, because I know how long it takes me to do a job. I look at something and I think, this looks like a project that's going to cost in my time this much, and so this is what I'm going to charge that client, or I'm going to propose to that client. Now, as the person who's hiring a coach, I would recommend that you kind of think of it that way as well. Like, if you have a budget for your writing, for instance, you spend money going to conferences, and you spend money on buying craft books and doing all the things that that writers do with their money to support their craft. Think about it that way and think, I'm willing to spend $1,000 this year on moving my book forward from where it is now to the next stage. And with that in mind, see what kind of support you can get, because the other piece is, I could charge, let's say $150 an hour, and you really only need a 5-minute check-in every second day, like 3 times a week. So how do we put a price on that? Obviously a price has to be put on that, but thinking about it rather than in the by the piece, thinking of it as the project. So what is that worth to me? That's worth $500 to get my first draft done. Talk to the coach and say, what can we do for $500 that will get me from where I am now to where I'd like to be, and that you feel good about for valuing your time? Because coaching isn't like, making mugs that have cost involved in them. I think, a good coach is going to work with you if there's a good synergy and a good fit to figure out a way to help you get to that goal. Because really, I fall in love with the people that I work with. I had 100 people in a course that I did, an online course. It's just like, I just want to be friends with all of them all the time, because you get really invested in their success. And so a lot of coaches will work with you. That's a long answer to say, I don't know.
Well, but I think that went full circle back to our original point, which was, you need to have a discussion with someone and talk about what are our expectations, what am I looking to get out of this, and what that's going to be, and then an openness to shifting and changing that as you shift and change, and as the project shifts and change.
Yeah, and if something's not working, if you're working with a coach and you're finding that either they're pushing you too hard, or you think they're just not getting what your needs are, or they're not pushing you hard enough, certain pieces of that you have to accept responsibility for yourself as the person being coached. But then there's a piece that the coach has to own as well. And if something's not working, have the courage to have that, breakup conversation, or can we look at readjusting? Because no, as I say to my son, who's now 22 and finally said, Mom, the best advice you've given me, that thing that you repeat all the time that used to drive me crazy, it's true. No decision is final. Like, okay, as long as you're not doing drugs or hurting somebody, any decision you make, you can change, right? Like, you can say, tried that, didn't work. Let's try something different.
And in terms of respecting time, I want to respect yours, because I asked you to speak with me for 30 minutes. So before we end our conversation, is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have asked you, or anything you want to leave with people when they think about coaching?
I would say yes. Those coaches, almost every coach is going to offer you a free 30-minute get to know me, let me get to know you. And I know for me, it can feel like, I really don't have an intention of actually hiring that coach. So I'm not sure if it feels authentic, or if there's integrity in actually taking them up on that call. Take them up on that call. Find a few coaches that look like they resonate with you from, someone's mentioned them, or you like their website, or you've come into the Creative Academy and you think, there might be a good fit there. Because number one, you won't know unless you've actually had those conversations. And number two, even more importantly, is those conversations, that 30 minutes, you should walk away with something valuable just in having that free conversation. So don't feel bad about that. That's what coaches do. That's how coaches get their clients, is they do these free conversations. And the industry standard is something like 10 conversations for one client. So if you're part of the 9 who don't end up hiring them, don't feel guilty. We love coaching. We love meeting people. We love helping. That's what coaches love doing. So that would be the only thing, is like, don't just do it. Go and try and see how it feels, and see what you can get out of it.
I think that's a pretty good place to end. Just do it. We're like a Nike ad. All right.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank you, Donna. Thank you so much for talking with us. And thanks to everybody else for listening.
See you over in the Creative Academy. Bye.
Are you a member yet?
Join us today and unlock a wealth of resources, masterclasses, feedback opportunities, and community events designed to help you reach the next step in your writing journey. No matter what stage you're at, we've got a helping hand to guide you along the way. Check out our free resource room if you'd like to get a taste of how we can help you reach your writing and publishing goals. Thanks for bringing us along on your writing and publishing journey. Donna, Crystal, and I hope we'll see you around the Creative Academy soon.